Welcome to the Brothers and Sisters podcast. This is what's coming up next, so stay tuned.
People don't realize, America is so traumatizing in this presentation. From the time I was a child, I always saw all of these, different things. I never realized, I never verbalized it to anyone, but I always did think why do people drive if they know they can get pulled over and the cops could kill them?
So we're back with Joseph Whittingham, the Brothers and Sisters.
Whittingham.
They want to call this segment the Coon segment. I don't even know if we can do that. I don't even know if I should edit that out, or maybe I should just write it. We do seem to have one of these segments every week where it's some Black person who's like, "What are you doing, sir?" or "man." Twofold. I think one will lead into another. Byron Donald, super duper uber Black Trump supporting congressman from Florida, wants to join the Congressional Black Caucus, and they aren't even acknowledging his existence.
It goes to them hard.
Yeah. Yes. Literally, he's like, I want to join the CBC, can't get an answer. They're sending out surrogates.
Yeah.
They're sending out surrogates to be it's a values thing. It's it's why you can't join. He was trying to make it about Republicans, but of course, like Walter pointed out, Mia Love, who was a Republican from Utah, she was in the Congressional Black Caucus.
Tim Scott is in the CBC.
Tim Scott's in the Congressional Black Caucus. So it's not that. I just found it interesting. He tried to make it, I'm Black. I came from I was raised by a single Black mother in Brooklyn. I have Black kids and I'm raising them. It's
interesting that someone who's Republican.
They should tell them they would consider.
Now you want to just now you just want to get in because you're Black?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I didn't want to say that, but yeah.
You think
that's where he is.
Right to be there just because you're Black? No.
I would think he would have.
Now of all times, I'm curious, why now?
Why do you want to be a part of the Congressional Black Caucus?
Post Trump, right? No, thank you.
He made us think about it because he was complaining about somebody on social media, and then it got blown up. They blew up his spot, and that's when CNN picked him up. Was like, "Hey, what's your beef with the Congressional Black Caucus?" Well, I sent them emails to join, and they won't reply. I love her on a killer because she looked at him. She was like, "So they wouldn't return your call?" Exactly. You know why? Well, because he's Republican. She was like, "But you support Trump?" He was like, "Well, of course." Well, what about? Of course. She rolls the tape, and it's like, "Well, I didn't say I supported those things. I supported policies."
There was a reel of just all of Trump's greatest hits concerning Black people.
It's like, "Why are you trying to overtalk me? Why are you trying to overtalk me?" She's like, "I'm
not clips of you talking."
Because you don't have anything interesting to say.
Bro, that was the best 7 minutes of my entire life for the whole week.
I gotta go.
I gotta pull that up. Yeah,
he claims he was set up, and maybe he was, but as Walter said, I suggest anybody pull it up. Bro. It is hilariously entertaining. They're like, he's literally like, they won't even respond to me, and then CNN's like, they have a montage of just all of Trump's great. They're like, do you think this has anything to do with it?
Maybe because he called Black women bitches.
Yeah.
And he stood there, he was like, it was great.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. And then along that same
cable, he's 42. He said that he came up during the civil rights movement. That I think he's like, I'm 42-year-old Black man who's come up in America after a lot of battles through the civil rights movement. He's 42. He's 42. He doesn't even know when the civil rights movement was.
He does not.
That's a no. That's an entry question. When was the civil rights movement? Not 42 years ago.
You can't be.
And if he was fighting, he wasn't fighting at 42 years ago. So take 10 off of that 30 years ago.
He was not
but then she hit him with Then she smacked him with the so was Donald Trump the elected president or did Joe Biden cheat and win? Because you voted against certifying the election.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, well, there were some inconsistencies, but where? There's 67 return.
Maybe you're not allowed to be in the Congressional Black Caucus if you don't know the difference between fact and
maybe you can't be in the Black Caucus if you don't believe in Black voters' votes mattering. If you vote against Black votes, you can't be in the Black Caucus.
Yeah. And he's also been a frequent guest because we all know how certain people love to point to Black people and like, see, why can't you be more like him?
Yeah.
He's been a frequent guest on you guys' man Tucker Carlson, who was actually yesterday talking about a race war. He fears there's going to be a race war.
Well, yeah, because white people don't start it. If it let me stop.
The idea he was home with Charles Murray. If you guys don't know Charles Murray, he's the author of The Bell Curve, which was we're all in our not to date ourselves, we're all late 30s, early 40s here. The Bell Curve was all the rage when we were in high school, and it basically says that there are certain unexplained differences between the races, and trying to help people at the lower socioeconomic end of the spectrum is basically a fruitless endeavor because they'll never be able to overcome these inherent genetic differences between races. So things like anti-poverty programs, social justice programs are a waste of time because even if you give people institute these programs, these genetic differences won't allow them to be able to overcome it. So they were opining, these are two white men of the finest of esteem, opining about exactly. Upright white men.
You said
And basically they were saying there's going to be a race war because they're saying, and this is what made me laugh, white people are going to start to practice identity politics. They haven't been practicing. They're going to start to though.
they've always
They're going to start to, and the pact that was made between Black people and white people post civil rights concerning affirmative action is now being broken.
We didn't agree to anything. That's rights, and they were like, "Okay, fine, here." Like, what?
I'm gonna let you guys roll with it. I just want to give you the whole thing if you haven't seen it, and then finally,
a lot of delusion.
they're saying the most, and this is the one that we're all going to love. The most discriminated against segment in this country is, of course, the white man with a college with a high school education. It's harder for him to get college. It's harder for him to get a job because of these race-based preferences that now exist in colleges and on the job place. All of these factors together, according to the great Tucker Carlson and Dr. Charles Murray, are going to lead to a race war. So I thought,
how about not being average? How about that? How about that? How about
basically what you're saying is I used to be able to get everything I want by being mediocre. And now
less than mediocre.
More.
Trump was president. Trump was president.
So instead of being better, I'm going to oppress you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's easier to say, at least I'm not.
Exactly. They should be upset with I can't.
I mean, honestly, like I really came to a point where I almost started feeling very like depressed even in my career early on because I feel like I recognized this coming over 15 years ago. Like when I went into design school, I feel like I was very sheltered because I was in boarding school and I came right out of boarding school and went right into, public school and then going to university. And, you just go through the motions and you go through school. And it was like not clicking with me, as I was saying earlier about school, is like you would have these conversations with people who should have, like, who I knew were very wealthy. So I knew that they had very good high school educations. So I'm like, on basic levels, like if you when we would have projects, or you go up for certain things, like the kind of like desire for mediocrity to always reign out that I saw happening like so long ago, or at a time when I thought when I went away to boarding school and I came out, I was like, oh, the world is so much more progressive, and things are changing and whatever, and like I was like, oh no, like this is really not it. Like I'm not to my own horn, but like I'm very good at what I do, and I for most things in my life I've been at the top, where like top 3 and whatever I finished in competitions and things.
Shoot your horn.
Yeah.
And just like I've literally been in companies, and actually I put a lot of things in fashion context, because I do believe designers, like, we have to look at the world in like such broad context to be able to see. That's what we used to do. Designers used to be so great because we would we would see like, okay, this person just became elected president, and these films just happened, and these cultural shifts are moving. So you see that like, there's more empowerment for people right now, or maybe people are really sad because of like a major national event. And so these things are working each other over time. It just became like, okay, this person has like either a large follow account, or before the follower social media account thing started happening, it started from the Hills days, because social media, they're the ones who started everything. I was working at these companies when they literally thought like, oh, we could just get like a young white person and put them in charge and the company will do well. Like, and it was like, it's not the age of the person, that's doing wrong. It's like your company is outdated because you're not hiring anyone with any cultural currency. Right. Like, and the people who have cultural currency in your business, over and over, you either get rid of them or you replace them with people who don't. And that's 10, 15 years later. Now we see all these problems with the canceling fashion companies because of,
it's funny you would say that. It's funny you would say that. I did a podcast about, 6 years ago now, with this dude, Andre Borchuk. He's very much echoing what you were. So this dude, we went to college together. This dude's an MD, MBA. Like, so he was making apps as he was making apps as like a kid, like got like a 1580 on the SATs. Like, okay, I'll go to Penn. He's in Wharton at Penn. Yeah. While he's in Wharton in business school, he gets his MD. He does in like 5 years. Genius, right? So what does he do? He goes back to making apps, right? He and his buddy make an app. It's like, so whenever you land someplace, Facebook bought it. Whenever you land in a place or whatever, wherever like it is, like all of your social media, people you're following and people who follow you, that double connection, it pops up. So let's say you're flying to Paris or Italy for some fashion thing. Yeah. The people you follow there and the people who follow you, as soon as you land, it pops up and you can contact them and be like, hey, I'm in your town, I'm in your city or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In some user testing for an app like that. I don't know if that was his app, but yeah, occasionally I will do user testing.
Yeah, it may have been. I know there were competitors, but Facebook bought it. Anyway, he was saying, like, I interviewed him in Austin at South by Southwest. He was literally like, yeah, like, this is going to be successful. I know it is because kids like it. I'm like, kids? Like, what do you mean, their parents? He's like, this is 2015. He was like, the internet is run by Black and Latino women age 11 to 25. He was like, everything that's going to happen is going to be as a result of like trying to appeal to that demographic. So I'm thinking about this. I'm like, okay, man. Then I see all these Disney princesses coming out. Then there's like a move to like diversify dolls and stuff like that. Then we're talking about this stuff now. As far as how you were talking about cultural currency, Joe, like he literally told me that it was like 2014, 2015. Every time something happens, I'm like, fucking Andre Borchuk called this. And like, literally, like it's like what's happening with this whole idea of you guys were talking about, Walter was talking about being average. You guys are talking about white mediocrity. It's because culturally, socially, I think there's a fear that they aren't calling the shots anymore. Like it's not, they've lost business.
That's
They've
why,
lost
in a way, they are not wrong in saying that they are losing their culture, because they are no longer culturally relevant because they choose not to be in connection with other people of other cultures.
Exactly.
Oh man.
Be culturally relevant and stay to yourself in everything else in the world, right?
They see
My
equality.
phone just died, so you guys carry on.
It's the quality for me. It's the equality for me.
Yeah, equality for all means oppression for them, and they don't like to see that. I mean, but these are the same people where, I mean, research shows if there's a room with like, I don't know, 20% Black people, they will look in the room and think that it's like 60% or 80% Black people.
Right.
Like,
The exaggeration.
they're delusional in so many ways. Like, you're not seeing what's actually there, but just you feeling the slightest little bit of
uncomfortable.
You're not getting
beyond that delusion, though. I think what really like scared me, and I feel like relates like to like now with our politics, is that like I literally, I decided after giving like a good 10 years to my career, I was like, I really want to be married and travel the world as much as I can and just enjoy this world as much as I can, because I was like, if people, especially all these companies I know, like I worked at Donna Karan, I'm like major companies that literally I told my friend, I was like, I kind of started calling myself like the comeback designer, because I would always get hired at companies right when they were like in the midst of what they, in corporate they call it restructuring. They'd always be in the midst of a restructuring, right? We're restructuring. They'd always like, we're restructuring. We need people like you to make it relevant, blah, 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 blah. And then you come in and you give them like one season of relevancy, and then they think like they're gonna take like that one season and milk that for like the rest of eternity. They would rather do that than continue to pay you to do your job.
They don't want to adapt.
Right?
They don't want to adapt. They just want things to stay as it has been when things were working out for them, right? And they were comfortable. And it's like, guess what? Now you're feeling what we're feeling. You're gonna have to move with the times. You're gonna have to step up. You're gonna have to work harder. And a lot of people just don't want to work harder because, I mean, I feel like a lot of times the white men that make these complaints, they
feel like
it's like, no, you have to earn it. Being thrown opportunities, like people are working hard for these opportunities, and you don't want to put in the work. You don't qualify.
I mean, I always look at things sometimes like I try to think back to like pre-America in the sort of imperial times. Like I do, like I think about I think a lot about white culture just being in design, because you think of all the we design into all of these other centuries and things like that. And there is a degree socially, culturally, where it's like white people have, I do feel like Black people, we didn't have like, that whole, we didn't have the same culturalization of oppression that they do. Like white people are culturally acclimated to oppression through imperialism with their kings and queens days. Like they had centuries of like a king and a queen said, all y'all bitches don't matter. And they was, for the most part, cool with it. Like they are cool with that kind of like imperial, sense of being like, okay, like as long as I'm, I have my position in life, I'm pretty much cool with it. Like the only thing, like they only broke away for that to come and make America, because that was supposed to be something different. Then they basically reverted back to that. They were like, oh, we don't really want a different thing from that. We want just that, but like without the kings and queens.
Power. Yeah.
Right? We want to be the kings and queens. They did not like kings and queens. They said we want to all be kings and queens over Black people. Right. And so we're gonna have slaves to do that, And I feel like now in today's society, it's the same thing with like, with politics. Like they can't let go of like any. It's just like watching like Game of Thrones or something like that. Like any giving of power to them is like a degradation of their empire, you know?
Right.
So it's like,
they just let anybody in here now.
Yeah, like I do think like everything has to be taken from them near forcefully. Like I think any assumption that they will give up anything willfully is just like total forcefully. You know, like everything has to be like they have to be made to do everything and taught everything because they are near infantile in that kind of way.
I was just gonna say
they need to be told.
Throwing tantrums. I can't have what I want anymore. Give me, that was my cookie. I want it back. It's like, but this person worked hard to earn the cookie. No, but I always get cookies.
We had slavery, right? So the idea that you have to work hard for something to get it is like obvious to us. That's not obvious to them, right? Like they got out of that mode a long time ago, like of having to work hard for shit. That's what you have a slave for. That's what you have a maid for. When there wasn't slaves, that's what maids are for.
A lot of them don't know what hard work is. Like what they believe is hard work.
It's not hard work.
No, you think you worked. But if you worked the way we work, you couldn't handle it.
What does this race war, what would it look like?
Wouldn't exist.
Well, I know it happened in Baltimore, so fine. I feel very safe. I feel like as angry as they are, they got sense.
There's a reason why I don't have a driver's license, and there's a reason why I mostly travel outside the United States. Because what's that movie, that show called Lovecraft Country? When Lovecraft Country came out, I literally felt like that show was reading me. Because I was like, this is why I don't have a driver's license. I'm 34, and like I had like a little therapeutic moment to myself. I was like, people don't realize like America is so traumatizing in this presentation. From the time I was a child, like I always saw all of these, different things. I never realized, I never verbalized it to anyone, but I always did think like why do people drive if they know they can get pulled over and the cops could like kill them? Like I literally kind of had that as like a subconscious thing, right? I was like, why do you want to get into this car? I was like, I have such anxiety getting into cars anyway, just like fast on a highway, like it seems deadly to me anyway. But then I'm like, every time you get into a car, it's like you give a police non-blanche to
Joseph, you sound very New York now, sir. When I got to college,
New York, I know it is.
All the college kids, like all the New York kids, they're like, we don't have driver's licenses. I'm like, the hell? Like, how do you guys not have driver's licenses? Like,
I haven't had a police interaction. I can't tell you the last time I ever had a police interaction. But I also feel like that's because I don't drive a car. If I had a car in any other place, a policeman could say, oh, hey, you just came around that corner without a blinking light or whatever. Pull over. I would have a panic attack. I would look like I was selling drugs. I would look like,
Why you nervous, boy?
Why you nervous, boy? What's wrong with you? Where are you coming from? Because as a pedestrian, when I was in high school, I can tell you, when I was in high school, I cut class one time to go be fast, right? And I was going to go be fast, and I was just in Queens, as a little Queens. I like all the Queens looks the same. It's like houses and trees, right? Like the hood. And a D, I don't even know what D's, because my cousin is the hood one, right? Like she knows everything. And like I knew after that day, but like a D car just drove up. It was a little Camry with all the things blacked up, and it just drove up on me on a tree-lined street, walking up to a house. I'm ringing the doorbell to this house. I was dressed in like Coach shoes. Like this is in the early 2000s, like Coach like shoes and like real preppy, like Kanye early 2000 preppy, real preppy. And they're like, oh, they like stopped me ringing this bell. The person must like realize the police came up because they didn't answer the door after that. So it was even worse, right? Wow. So they're like, oh, where are you going? Why are you where are you going? Asking me where I'm going, walking up to a house. I was like, this is really weird to me. And I literally I always put on like the ultra gay when I talk to policemen. So I was like, oh, like, look at me. Like,
I'm non-threatening. Yeah.
That's how non-threatening I am. I couldn't possibly be doing anything you could be interested in.
I was
And he
just
was
saying
like,
that
oh,
today.
and he cut that down real quick. He was like, oh, the person, oh, we were in the neighborhood for robberies because the person who's been robbing people has actually been dressing really nicely. Particularly to get the people to answer the door.
Boy, that's what
I was like, oh, he got answers for everything. Like my grandmother, he got answers for everything. After that, I was like, oh, fuck it. Just go ahead, take me in. Because I was like, well, I'm here to meet somebody. They were like, who? I'm here meeting a friend. What's your friend's name? I came up with the name. They were like running the thing somewhere. They were like, oh, well, and then no one was answering the doors. They were like, so where's your friend? We're still standing here.
Out here robbing white folks.
And that's just walking up to a street. So like getting in a car, like I couldn't even imagine. So certain things with the police, it's like, as a New Yorker, I literally feel like it's Westworld out there. It's Westworld. It's Wild West out there. In those other states, I don't know how y'all survive. I really don't. I don't know how y'all survive. I don't.
I used to drive in New York all the time, and I was just telling my brother Sean that a story about how I got pulled over, and I told the police officer, I'm having a really bad day, and you're making it worse. He was like, dang, you turned into a white girl. I always turn into a white girl whenever I get pulled over by the cops. Maybe it's my upbringing and being around so many young, white girls.
White people.
But I'm like scared, and I feel like my brain just turned me into the most, I don't know, person that they will most likely see as human. So yeah, I always just and it always works for me. Knock on wood. Cops are always like,
my tag, they see him a 6'1", 235-pound black man.
Yeah.
That's the first thing they see.
He was wearing a baseball cap.
Always fit the description.
Get him.
Last time I got pulled over,
the only thing that saved
50.
me.
I just crossed the Bay Bridge. I'm in Comaco County.
Oh yeah, look out.
Dang.
And I'm easily going 80 miles an hour in a 50. So I see him, and when you see a cop, it's too late. If you see them, that means they already got you, right? So I just pull right over. He turns his lights off, up behind me. He said, trick question. Do you know how fast you were going? It's a trick question because the minute you answer, you just admitted you broke the law.
Nah.
So you never answered the question.
Nope.
I didn't know how fast I was going.
Yeah, that's why you say you
don't
know.
I always say I don't know. I always say I'm not sure.
The speed limit? Was I going the speed limit?
That's what I would say. And I was being smart ass.
The first question they ask is, do you have any warrants or charges?
Yeah.
Wow, really?
That's the first question it's asked. Yeah. Do you have any outstanding warrants or anything like that or charges? Yeah.
None that I know of.
Then they run it because it's a great.
Oh, no, sorry. My sister is a lawyer and Kwasi, and when she was working in Salisbury, and I would go down there and visit her, like, a large portion of her docket every day would just be these people who like she knew all of the police from the area, like she knew the one who pulled the people over. She knew the one who always knew how to find the drunks when they came out from a party from the local, the little restaurant. Like they have all these little traps for you just waiting. And like in a certain way, that's sometimes like how I feel like I kind of got really interested into politics, because I do feel like that is in a certain way like where policy like leads things. Like I think people who don't live in industrialized like cities like realize is like there are all these touch points where police have like open access to you outside of cities that they don't have access to us in cities like that.
Yeah.
Like, they really have reasoning. Like when I was in a cop wanted to find some way to meet. The only other time I had a police interaction was I went into a car in a train and it was super stink. It was empty. and I should have known something was wrong because it was empty.
Yeah, when it's empty,
When it's
Right?
no air conditioning,
No,
or
something, right?
Yeah.
So I went through the doors into the other car, and a policeman who was wearing plain clothes, he was undercover, pulled me over. You know how they have and now they have it on all things that you're not supposed to walk through, or
Yeah,
like,
like
it
the
actually says you're
doors
not
that
supposed to
connect the
ride
cars,
between
you can't
the
walk
trains.
through anymore. 'Cause
No.
It said ride through. It's you're not supposed to ride in between the trains. I didn't stop. I just moved through because of why I went through. And I was like, oh, I didn't feel safe in there because there was nobody in there. He pulled me over. He was like, I'm supposed to take you in now.
Shit.
He's like, I'm supposed to take you in and give you a ticket because I didn't have an ID. So he's like,
Oh, yeah, there you go. That's a good way. Yeah.
because you don't have ID, I'm supposed to take you in.
You got to be
But he's
tagged.
like, I don't. But he tried to be a smart ass. But he tried to make it seem like I'm gonna be a smart ass, but I'm gonna make it like a reason. He's like, but I live in Long Island and I don't want to have to come in on my day off to go to your docket downtown.
Assert some authority
So
power.
you show up and I won't show up and they'll just throw it out. And I was like, all right. He's like, I'm gonna write this because my boss is watching. His boss was like in another car somewhere. He's like, my boss is watching and I have to write a certain amount of these or whatever. I'm gonna write this to you and just don't show up or I won't show up and they'll throw it up or whatever. And I was like this, this is just a mess. Like just another random thing that they created to have a reasoning to be able to interface with you.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you should have to talk to me. I don't know you. And you undercover. So undercover, you there to find people dropping bombs in the train.
Exactly. Like
Real
that's
stuff.
the main focus.
Not people passing through the trains.
No. That's low-hanging fruit. That is not a priority.
Well,
That's
I take it.
In Ocean City, Maryland.
That's like a cop choosing to pull you up, stop you for jaywalking, which is technically but no one stops anyone for that. But it's that is the civilian walking equivalent of if you're in a car and they say, oh, you didn't put your turning signal, right? It's like, oh, you jaywalked or you turning signal, right? No, but they know that like jaywalking is so stupid, and I am any jury, you can tell no jury, oh, I took him because he was jaywalking.
Right.
But you can tell them, oh, they didn't put their tail light on when they turn, so that's why I had to pull them over.
Gosh. Yeah.
So I take it we aren't expecting a race war, and Byron Donald is on his own when it comes to war.
I do think that we are headed to some kind of race war.
Yeah, I was gonna
unfortunately. Because I'm not about that life. I'll be honest. I'm not about that life. I haven't been to any protest. I support all of them from afar. But, I really struggle with that, with the times that we're in, because I do feel like we're coming to a physical kind of point. And I don't want to get physical, but like white people, I think white people, like when people are that fragile, they are likely to do really mentally unstable things, i.e. January 6th.
January 6th. Yeah.
Well, January 6th
they
is
know not to bring that to New York, though. That's my only thing. So that's why I haven't moved. We wanted to buy a house, but we didn't move to North Carolina because they went red, and Philadelphia, they only hung out by a thread. So I'm not moving until it's safe.
I think that's the reason why we aren't headed towards a race war, but